Thanks, Caitlin. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk with all of you today. In a minute, I'll go ahead and share my slide deck. But before we get started, just appreciation for you taking your morning to learn about some important information around IDEA and IEPs and supporting families. And I'm guessing that you are all coming with a variety of different levels of understanding. And with the amount of people that are on too, just a few things to kind of keep in mind. There may be questions that you have that are very individualized. And so I want to make sure that I share our information and resources. So if there is something that requires more sort of nuanced conversation around what is happening individually, then you can reach out and contact me so that we can have the further conversation. There will be times when I'll ask you to put information in the chat, to use the reaction bar, things like that for engagement. And I also will be monitoring the chat as well to see if there are things that pop up. But I do want to share with you that if it's something that maybe is more nuanced or individualized, then I will ask that, either I'm getting to the topic that we're going to talk about that will cover what you're asking, or I may ask that this might be a great question to reach out to me directly, and I'll make sure I share my contact information in the chat. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen. So today we'll be talking about understanding IDEA and supporting families in the IEP process. And just to introduce myself, and I actually see some of my friends from Southern Oregon on here as well too, so shout out. So I really want to just start out with what brings me here. So my name is Heather Olivier. I am a parent and I am the program manager of engagement and learning for FACT Oregon. And really what brings me here is that I was a middle school and high school teacher for many years. And as part of that process had sat in as an English or a social studies teacher in the IEP process. Felt like this dates me a little bit, but they used to give us like a CD-ROM about that was IDEA that we were supposed to watch. Thought I totally understood special education, having sat in meetings as a teacher. It was a very different experience when my son transitioned. My son was identified with autism, and transitioning into kindergarten was a very different experience for me. I thought I really understood the process and realized that I really didn't. And it was that beginning or that start for me to be able to say, like, I've been through this process as a teacher. If this is how I feel, how might this feel for families who have never, had this experience before? And that's really what started me in the process of wanting to learn as much as I can and could to support my son. And then ultimately recognizing that I really wanted to help other parents understand how to navigate and meaningfully participate and be a part of their special education team working with their school teams. And so that was really a turning point for me, and such a perfect marrying of my two experiences as a teacher and as a parent to work for FACT Oregon. So I'm really happy to be here today. So FACT Oregon, every single state has what's called a PTI, or a Parent Training and Information, through the Office of Special Education, federally funded. FACT Oregon is the PTI for Oregon. And so the purpose of the PTI is to ensure parents of children with disabilities and youth have access to resources, information, and training. We work with families and youth who experience disability. We help parents participate effectively in their child's education, recognizing how important that participation is as part of the school team, and then partnering with professionals like yourself and policymakers to improve outcomes for all children who experience disability. And the way we do that is in a variety of different ways. So it may be a training like you're attending today, or a workshop, or an in-service. this. Webinars, we have a lot of webinars that are occurring. We have one-page planning profile tools, which I'll share with you today. Information and resources. We have a support line that anyone can call as well. Including yourselves. So sometimes I think people think, oh, well, that's for families to call. But the reality is that I frequently have community partners reach out, or people that are coming alongside or working closely with families also call to get information as well. And so keep that in mind, that it's a great opportunity to maybe run something by or say, I'm not sure, or even better yet, maybe a warm handoff with a family who could use some additional support in working or talking with us. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then also advocacy, a lot of work at this last long session to improve greater outcomes for all kids within school systems. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we'll talk about the purpose and main principles of IDEA. We'll look at the IEP step by step, which probably doesn't sound like the most exciting thing ever, but trust me, you'll gain some new insight and nuggets into understanding of it. We'll talk about that partnership in supporting families in the process. And to be honest, that's not isolated to that one bullet point. I'll be showing you throughout the whole process where your support can be so vital to helping a family understand how to really be part of the process. And then we'll have an opportunity to have some question and answer, and also figure out what did you learn today that was a takeaway? I firmly believe I'm a constant learner, right? I'm never at a place where I'm like, oh yeah, I've got it down. I'm always looking for new information. So I want you to think, as you are attending today, what are some of the things that you hear that you think, oh, yes, I can totally relate to that. That's been my experience too, or that's been my experience with a family that I'm working with. Then another one might be, oh, that's a new information for me. I didn't realize that, or that really helps me with the work that I'm currently doing. And then the other thing might be, well, now I still have more questions, or this has brought up something else for me that I want to find out. So I want you to kind of set that as your intention as you're listening today on some areas that you might think that could be takeaways for you after this. So we are going to use the chat. And, it's maybe early for some people, but if you need to grab a cup of coffee, whatever, in order to engage. But in the chat, I'm wondering, what barriers do you see that families have in navigating special education for their child? So what barriers do families that you experience or having conversation with might be having in being able to ensure that their child is receiving the supports that they need in their school setting? So I'm going to go ahead and stop talking for a moment, and please use the chat, and let's just learn from each other and see. I'm guessing we all lack of access to programs with significant behaviors, distance learning, language barriers. Yep. Don't know where to go or to start. Schools that are not listening to maybe parents, lack of understanding, language barriers. School jargon. Oh, yes. Not knowing what's available, understanding their rights. Turnover at the school. And right now, right, with our teacher, we do have significant teacher turnover and shortages. Bullying, not knowing their rights. In rural parts of the state, maybe not having enough access to supports, right? Yeah. So guess what? Those are all the same things that families are identifying as well, that they are experiencing. So, you understand this, but I think it's really important to understand that families are navigating multiple complicated systems, of which special education is one, right, of those multiple complicated systems. So, and it is a complicated system. So there's jargon, there's just the fact that in order to qualify, right, it's based on a deficit model. So there has to be a reason why you qualify. There has to be an area of concern, right? There has to be something going on. And so I do think it's really important in understanding this process to be able to say, okay, what do we know about it? And how can we help families sort of demystify and help them understand how to meaningfully participate? Because here's what I'm going to tell you. You don't have to know every law. You don't have to know every legal back and forth of special education, every acronym, every word, in order to be able to meaningfully participate in the process. And so I want to show you those places within that are really important. So before we get started, I do want to address a couple of things, because what was brought up quite a bit was around CDL, distance learning, maybe, during the pandemic, there might have been some additional barriers, obviously, really for everybody, but significantly more for some kids who experience disability. So here's the thing that we've really learned over the last, close to 2 years, right? What we learned as an organization is that when the beginning of the pandemic started, we were like, oh, we've got to shift and we've got to do this and we've got to do that. And we've got to be responsive here and we've got to be responsive there. And one of the things we realized was that the advocacy is the same. So what I'm going to share with you is what I would share with you on how you would advocate for COVID recovery services as a result of the pandemic, or the IEP is not robust and we need to add some additional supports in there. The advocacy is the same, the avenues are the same. And that's really important to remember, that it's really foundational that we remember that. So what's going to look the same? Well, that will all look the same, right? So your advocacy will look the same. Meaningfully participating in the process will still look the same. What might look a tiny bit different this year? So I want to address this up front because I feel like I'm going to have a lot of questions about that. So there is a temporary rule that was put in place that is individualized COVID recovery services. And what it essentially says, just to kind of boil it down, is that the IEP team for each child that is on an IEP will need to consider individualized COVID-19 recovery services, at least at an initial IEP meeting, right? So an IEP meeting that you would maybe have scheduled and you were going to have, and each regularly scheduled annual meeting until 2022-23. So what that means is that every single student who is on an IEP should have a conversation with their IEP school team around whether or not the child is eligible for individualized COVID recovery services. Now, this is new, very, very new, and schools are trying to figure out what this will look like, okay? So what we want to make sure is that families are able to share their experience, share, their concerns over what occurred during comprehensive distance learning. So that's going to be a really important piece of that preparation. But guess what? Preparation is always needed prior to a meeting. This is an additional layer. Sure. So this would be your meetings through 2022-23 school year. Okay. So not just this year. And actually, you know what I'll do really quickly? I'll put the link in there for you directly for it. So for those of you that are love to kind of dive into some of the language around it, let me do that real quick. I'll put that into the chat. And that will take you directly to it. So you can have a chance to see what that looks like. But keep in mind, IEP meetings were going to be occurring anyway, right? So the preparation for an IEP meeting will be the same. And in addition, we will be having conversation around COVID recovery services. And so having families being able to share their experience during that time is really important. For some families that might have connected with us early, they started documenting it. And so they will have that documentation to share, but I don't want a family to be nervous if they haven't. They can still write down what their experience was during that time period. So I wanted to kind of front load that because I thought there might be quite a few questions around that as we're going through. Okay, so let's dive into IDEA. Now before we do, I do want to show you this. This special education toolkit is something we put together prior to the pandemic that has some really good tools that I'm going to introduce to you today. Anytime you see this little icon at the top that has the little tools, that is something that comes directly out of this toolkit. And this will be shared with you so that you can utilize this toolkit. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that up front. Okay, so before we get started specifically on IDEA, I want to give you a sense of some of the federal law and education rights that students with disabilities will have access to. So first of all, on the bottom, we see ADA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's that civil rights law that prohibits discrimination, right? And so that is that's that foundational piece, right? That we know also is a protection for children or students who experience disability. Then we have ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, and that provides all children in the US, every single child, with the right to free public education to ensure every child achieves. So that's for all children. Then we have 504, right? So the Disability Civil Rights Law that prohibits discrimination. Now I'm focused on the IEP today, but some of you might have questions around the 504, and I'm happy to follow up with anyone who has specific questions around 504. But this focus today is IEP. And then at the top, we have IDEA. And really, what do I want you to know about all of this? What I want you to know is that students that are eligible for special education have the protection of all the laws in the pyramid. So for example, we have some students who there might be some concerns around ADA. Maybe it's not IDEA, but a child would be covered under all of those areas. So I just wanted you to see federally where all of those sort of fit, and that all those are protections that are afforded to a student that is eligible for special education. So we're going to start out with the principles of IDEA, and this is really foundational. This is the foundational part. Let me just pop this up really quick. This is really the foundational pieces of what I want to talk about with you today, because understanding these, I think, makes such a significant difference. So we're going to talk about FAPE, or free and appropriate public education. We're going to talk about IEP today. We're going to talk about appropriate evaluation. We're going to talk about the least restrictive environment, parent and student participation in decision making, so important, and then the procedural safeguards. So that's the foundational piece of IDEA that we'll talk about. So let's start out with, why do we even have special education? Well, we have special education that is a federal law, IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So this federal law ensures children with disabilities have available to them what's called FAPE. So that's, again, where somebody might just hear the word FAPE, but understanding that FAPE is a free and appropriate public education that emphasizes special education and related services designed to meet, this is the kicker right here, their unique needs, right? That's really important. Now, prior to 1975, children who experienced disability did not, this was not into an existence. We did not have the IDEA. And so it's huge and it's groundbreaking. And just to date, that's not that long ago, okay? I was alive in 1975. You can do your math, figure that out. But in my opinion, 1975 is not that long ago. That prior to that, children who experienced disability did not have afforded to them the right to an education. And so it really is groundbreaking, absolutely groundbreaking. And so the services are designed to meet their unique needs and prepare them for education, employment, and independent living. Now, this is where I have to just share personally that as a parent, when I learned this, this rocked my world. That every single decision that we made around my son's education was to prepare him for life beyond school. Okay. And I learned this when he was young. And what that did to my brain and the way that I began to think about my engagement and conversations that I had with my school team, it meant that I had to start thinking about what life would look like for him beyond school. So when he's 5, that was a really difficult place to wrap my brain around. He's 16 now. And had we not had that, those conversations early, even though it was really complicated for me to even think about, I remember saying, what is life going to look like for him when he's 15, when he's 25, when he's 35? When he was 5, I remember that. And now we're there, right? So now it's so powerful, that understanding, that it completely changed how we as a family engage with the school team. I actually wrote it at the top of my paper, that the purpose of special education was to prepare him for life beyond school, for further education, employment, and independent living, which meant every decision we made, I said, how is this going to further what life will look like for him beyond school? It's really powerful. I think for me, it was earth-shattering and completely changed my perspective. So FAPE. So who gets special education? Well, there's the different eligibility categories, and you can see them all on the screen right here. Okay. And then to be eligible for special education, the student must meet the criteria under one of these eligibility categories and need specially designed instruction, and have a need for specially designed instruction. I think sometimes where people get tripped up is a child may have a medical diagnosis for something, and they'll say, oh, okay, well, they should have an IEP. Well, there still is an evaluation, an educational evaluation process in order to determine whether they're eligible under one of these categories and have a need for specially designed instruction. Okay. And so that's really important to think. Now, also, I want you to keep in mind that the eligibility category is the door that opens to the services. Okay. So why am I making that a big deal? Well, let's say, for example, that, a child is eligible under communication disorder. Well, let's get back to the word that was said under FAPE, unique needs. So what that means is that the door is open to the services through the eligibility of communication. Then we determine what is unique. What are those unique needs that a child might need in order to be successful and access their education? Okay. Now, I get what I'm going to say next is a little bit controversial, but here's what I'm going to say. Because it is unique, it doesn't mean you receive a bucket of communication services, that every kid who has communication as their eligibility receives a bucket of communication services, because it's individualized. And so I think it's really important to keep that in mind, is that, you might have someone who has an initial, one eligibility, and might have an additional one. They might have 2. That could happen, and that's common. And so I think that that's just really important to keep in mind, is that it's individualized, that the eligibility is the door that opens to the services that a student may need. So eligibility, let's just talk a little bit generally about it. So eligibility as identified in IDEA is required for the IEP. So those eligibility categories required, right? They will be redetermined every 3 years, which means there might be and I'll address something with this. There'll be an evaluations or a value to determine whether or not a child is still eligible. What has been happening during the pandemic, or I would say really early on, is that a lot of students had their 3-year evaluation come up, and districts, because, let's be honest, like bringing kids in to do evaluation might have been really challenging. Or there might have been, you know, whatever, uh, because of community spread, or, you know, whatever was happening. And so you might have had families that were asked to do a file review in place of a 3-year evaluation. So, and here's what I want to share a little bit about that. So a file review, the family has to sign off an agreement that they are agreeing to do a file review. And so that may have happened. Some districts said, let's do a file review with a note that when we can be back in person, let's go ahead and do some evaluation at that point. Okay. Some districts said your child will be eligible, and so let's just go ahead and do a file review, and just now they will remain eligible. My only thing that I want to caution is if we have students who keep having file reviews and then don't have up-to-date evaluations, then when we're looking at coming back into school, we are going to need to do some evaluation to determine where a child is after they've been, you know, not attending like a traditional brick and mortar school, because maybe they've been in comprehensive distance learning for a long time and they weren't, you know, they haven't been on school, and maybe there's been some loss of learning, you know. And so I do think that updating information is going to be really important, but that's a decision to be made as a team, which includes the family being part of that conversation. In order to evaluate, there is parent consent required in order for that to occur. And the 60 school days is really important. So I want to, because sometimes what'll happen is that families will say, I've been waiting like however many months. Well, it's 60 school days, okay? 60 school days, not calendar days. So what happens if you start your evaluation process right before school is about to get out, right? Well, it's going to feel like a very long time because it's 60 school days. What happened for right before the pandemic started? Somebody had signed consent to evaluate. Well, schools shut down. Those days were not then included in a timeline for 60 school days. Okay. So that's just important to remember, that it's 60 school days, which can feel like a really long time. They can get done earlier, okay, but there is that timeline of 60 school days. It is a team decision, which includes the family as part of that. The services are based specifically on a child's needs, and that they can be eligible till a standard diploma or the age of 21, right? So that if the diploma options are a modified or extended diploma, then they would have access to their transition program to the age of 21. So the next part of the principles are the least restrictive environment. I really love this section. It's the reason why it's specifically quoted on here. And what it says is that to the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities are educated with children who are not disabled. Special classes, separate schooling, or other removal from the regular education environment occurs only when the nature or severity of the disability is such that education in regular classes with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved. Okay, that's a really, really strong, powerful statement. And frequently people will say to me, well, what are the supplementary aids and services? Well, there's not a list, right? Because it's individualized. And so this is where I really talk with families about what supports and services would your child need in order to be successful, right? What do you know works for them, and what do you know doesn't work for them? Based on your information as a school team, what do you observe that works for the child and what doesn't work for the child? And how can we identify what those supports and services are, those supplementary aids and services, in order to support a child? The reality is that all students are general education students, right? Some students access the supports and services afforded to them as part of the IEP, right? Those are services, supports and services that allow them to access their education. And so if you keep that in mind, then that's the part that's so important, is figuring out what a child needs individually in order to be successful in accessing their education. And the next part is parents as a vital team member. So IDEA requires that the parents of a child with a disability be given the opportunity to participate in their meetings, with identification, evaluation, educational placement of the child, in order to receive a provision of FAPE, right? So they're actually called out number one on the list to be part of that process. And so you've already identified in the chat, what are some of the barriers that families might have in order to participating? It could be a language barrier, right? It could be that the content or information and navigating the system is so complicated and difficult to understand. 100%, right? And so recognizing that there may be barriers that families have to participating, and how do we identify what they need to meaningfully participate in the process? So I know what I need, and so I share with my team what I need in order to meaningfully participate. I know that I need to see a draft IEP. I know that I need to see any evaluations or assessments that we'll be discussing ahead of time in order to digest it, right? Some families I work with have identified that they need someone to provide interpretation for them in order to participate. I've also had some families who've shared that they need somebody who can read the document to them, because print, it would be difficult for them to meaningfully participate and access the information, right? So you might be able to help a family understand what supports they might need, what accommodations they might need to meaningfully participate in this process. And that's a really important piece for families to figure out, because it is complicated. One of the things that we asked for is that every single staff member would be prepared at the beginning of the meeting to say like 3 of my son's strengths, something I asked for the team that we started out before we did anything else. So asking for what you need and thinking about what you need so that you recognize your role, a family recognizes their role on the team, is really important. And I think that is a huge role that you could play in supporting a family and understanding how important their role is. The reality is, and then definition of parent, it says parent on here, but I think it's important to call out. Parent means a biological or adoptive parent, a foster parent, a legal guardian, someone who's acting in a parental role, a surrogate parent. So kind of keeping that in mind, that is a broad definition of parent. That's why we kind of side more on saying family, but just know that that's all included in there too. And so while this is not in IDEA, this is something I want to share with you. I think what's really important around that parental role or that family role and being part of the process is that who has a vision for the future? The family is the one we want to nurture and support in having a vision for the future. So for me, it's trajectory. It's about thinking about, what do I want for my child and what do I not want? And in the early days, what that looked like was me in the lead, right? So I was the one that was dreaming those big dreams. I'm the expert on my son. Families are the expert on their kids, their number one fan and advocate. And so thinking about in those early days, how can you support families in having that vision? Because a school team is thinking about a year, 1 year, an annual year's worth of progress. Who's the person to bring in the vision for the future? That the whole purpose of special education is to prepare a child for life beyond school. It's the family. And so how can we support the family in understanding and having a vision for the future, understanding what they want for their child and what they don't want, and how to share that with the school team, who is only thinking about a year's worth of progress, right? So you might see how we have like misconceptions when we're coming into a meeting. if the team is talking about a year and I'm talking about life beyond school, how can we bridge that gap to make sure that we're working together? And so that's a really important piece. And ultimately, it's the family understanding and creating that vision first in order for the roles to switch. Right? So early on, I was the one, my husband, who created this vision for my son's future. My son's 16. He runs his IEP meetings. Mom is in the back seat, right? That's because it was ultimately supporting him and being the driver, right? That's what we're looking for, is we're looking for self-determination. We're looking for pouring in and supporting families and having a vision and dreaming big dreams for their kids in order for to model that for their own kids. And the last piece is the procedural safeguards. So every single family either will receive a hard copy or will receive a digital copy of procedural safeguards. And I feel like in the past, it's been a great fire starter for me, as you know, as I put it into a fireplace. I don't know that families look at it very closely. And I get why, because it is kind of complicated. But this booklet, that you either receive digitally or you receive, a hard copy of, are your parent rights. They're the parent rights for special education, all included in there. And some families might be asked to sign that they received a copy. Here's what I'll tell you. This is frequently used as a way to say that the parent had an opportunity to meaningfully participate because they received their procedural safeguards in a booklet. I wouldn't say that that's meaningful parent participation, that you received the booklet. And what I know is the booklet is chock full of a lot of really great information, but it can be used as an indicator of a parent participation. So if you're not offered your procedural safeguards, you want to make sure the family asks for a copy. And we want to make sure that families know if they're unsure about this or they need help navigating this, they can always call us and we can walk them through the procedural safeguards. Okay, so that's the procedural safeguards for that's the principles, the core principles of IDEA. So now I'm going to give you an opportunity to do a little bit of feedback for me. I want you to use the reaction button at the bottom. Okay, and I want you to think to yourself, using the reaction bar at the bottom of your Zoom screen, which may be new to some of you, which principle of IDEA do you feel the most comfortable talking about with families? So just go ahead and use that. At the bottom, you have a reaction bar that with a little smiley face and a plus sign. If you click on that, you'll see some reactions down there, and I want you to just use that. So I see a thumbs up, parent and student participation. I see lots of thumbs up. Yep. Oh, I see an IEP. Awesome. Thumbs up. Oh, I see a thumbs down. So that means maybe not any of them. Appropriate evaluation. Good. I see a heart. I see free and appropriate public education. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, you can definitely use the chat and put it in there too. Okay, thank you. Oh, good. I saw an LRE. Yay. Thank you. I appreciate that. For some of you, maybe that's the first time you've seen the reaction bar or used it or whatever. So I'm always a little hesitant sometimes to ask people to use that. But that's really helpful for me to see. Also, what's really actually makes me feel really happy is I did see a lot of you with thumbs up. That was primarily the one I saw. Parent and student participation and decision making. So that's perfect, because really that's such an amazing role that you can fill as part of the work that you do in supporting families. So thank you so much for that. Okay, so next what we're going to talk about is the IEP development. And this is really where we're walking through it step by step. I want you to look at this slide because there's a reason why the slide is actually designed this way. You can see that it's in the form of steps. And when I learned this actually was really changed my perspective. So in the IEP, you have special factors, and then you have present levels. You have transition, assessment, goals, service, and summary. Placement is a totally separate page, but all of this is moving in a direction, right? They're steps, they're pavers, right? So what you'll see as we're going through this process is that you can't jump around because your special factors set the stage for your present levels that are the foundation of identifying what's going to be in the IEP. I didn't understand that when I was a family. So another key, or a parent. So that's well, and I still am, but early days, I didn't understand that. And so it made it very confusing for me because I had in my head where I wanted my son to be. He needs to be in this classroom with this teacher. That's what I had in my head. And so as I was sitting in an IEP meeting, I was like, yeah. Why are we talking about assessments? I don't care about this. Like, I didn't listen and I didn't meaningfully participate in any of the parts that were important. And then we got to placement and I was like, what? That's not where I wanted him to be. I didn't realize that they're step by step and they all build on each other. And so that's a really important piece, I think, for us to all know is how can you make sure that families understand that that meaningful participation is throughout the whole piece. And if you have something in mind that's going to be important to be included in there, or for example, families that have, that are strongly committed to their child being supported in the least restrictive environment in the general education classroom, it would be important to understand how important every single piece of this IEP development looks. So let's dive into it. So first, the IEP is a legal document and it's a working document. That's actually what I like the most. It's never set in stone, right? So what that means is it can always be changed if something's not working. So sometimes what happens, I'll see families put a lot of emphasis on, oh, this is like, if I don't get this right, then X, whatever's going to happen. And the reality is that, you can call a meeting. You can make changes to the as a team to the document if it's not working. It is a working document. And so that's a really important piece, I think, to remember, and sometimes helps families not feel like, oh man, if I don't get this right, I am in trouble, right? So it describes strengths, needs, and services based on a child's unique needs. So it's individualized and unique. It's developed by a team in a consensus-driven process. So it's not one person, it's developed as a team together. And that access and participation in general education curriculum, including extracurricular and non-academic activities. So that can be written into the IEP as well. If it's related to school, we can write that supports in the IEP for extracurricular and non-academic activities. So let's look at the first piece of it, which is who would we include in the IEP team and meeting? So the first is parents, as I said before, okay? They know their child best, they're their number one fan, and they have a vision for the future. Sorry, one moment. I lost my mouse for a second there. Okay. The next would be the general education teacher. Now, here's what I want to say. They're knowledgeable of the general education curriculum and classroom because you want students to have access to grade level curriculum. So who knows that better than your general education classroom teacher, right? I always ask for a general education teacher to be included in my son's IEP meetings. Sometimes if a child is in a self-contained classroom, they just make the assumption that, oh, we wouldn't include the general education teacher. But remember that we're always looking at how we can look at grade level standards and then figure out what supports and services a child would need to access at the level that, that where they can access the information. Then we have the special education teacher who's knowledgeable of special education, and that may be your case manager. That frequently is the case, that it's the case manager. We have a district representative, and this is why this is important. And I would always ask, who's the district representative? Now, a lot of times people can wear multiple hats. So your special education teacher could also be your general education, or I'm sorry, your district representative. But there's nothing worse than having a meeting. Let's say you're talking about needing the need for assistive technology, right? There's nothing worse than having a whole entire conversation around something that is money, like allocation of resources, and then they're like, oh, sorry, we don't have a district rep here, so we can't really have that conversation. So asking who it is, has the authority to make the decisions for district resources, which, you know, is attached to money. Someone to interpret the evaluations, so they explain the data and results. And again, they could be one of the other people or someone separate. Now, do you remember that I said that part of what I needed to ask for meaningful parent participation was that I had the evaluations and assessments ahead of time? So that's something I ask my school team. And I make sure I tell them why, because I actually need time to process the information, to ask questions. Like, I don't want to actually hear it for the first time at the meeting, because I won't be able to process it all or take it in. And when I let's just say this, when I don't have time to process information and I'm given information in a very short amount of time, my reaction is not going to be something that the IEP team is probably going to enjoy. And so it's better for me to be prepared ahead of time rather than having a gotcha moment. Nobody likes gotcha moments, you know what I mean? So, but what the school team said is, well, we really need someone to interpret the results. So I said, awesome, let's talk ahead of time. Can we have the person who did the evaluation call me ahead of time and go through the results with me ahead of time? So then guess how different the meeting looks. Instead of reading through the whole evaluation, I can say, hey, this looks great. Can we look at paragraph 2, like sentence 3? I have a question about that one. And that is a very different meeting than having people just read, you know, evaluations word for word that are saying all of the things that my child can't do. So someone to interpret the evaluations is really important. The next one is related services. They deliver the services needed to access the education. It could be OT, it could be speech, it could be, you know, nursing. Those are having those people participate as well. So for example, for my son, his occupational therapist, like, had worked with him for a long time, knows him like really, really well. I always want to make sure that she's in attendance at the meeting because she has unique insight into him as part of it. And then the student, it's never too early, and it's required by age 16. So guess what I don't want to have happen? I don't want a child's first meeting to be attending at the age of 16. So how can we begin to include our kids early on? And I'll show you a tool that can be really helpful. So saying the first time when my son was young, he would come in and hand out his little cute one-page profile and, oh, that's so cute, to now he's 16 and he actually is the one that leads his meeting, doesn't tell you, like, this has been a process for how did we get him to the point of participating. But whatever that looks like for a family, requiring having a child participate as early as possible, because by age 16 we're looking at transition services. So we're starting to talk about self-determination, post-secondary goals, graduation options, all of those things that are so important, that are really about looking at life beyond school. We want to make sure our kids are involved in that process and whatever that looks like. And then others with knowledge. So anyone can be invited by you or another team. I just make sure families know that please make sure that you let your team know if you are going to be bringing somebody to the meeting. It's really anyone that's knowledgeable about the student and can contribute. So for example, all of you, right? How can you, the family can send something to the IEP team that asks for you to be included in the meeting. And so how can you have conversation with your team if that's something that you are able to do to support a family in going? And a note taker. So some of you already probably who have heard me talk know this story, but having a note taker has been invaluable because I can't multitask. I can't like listen, participate, and take notes at the same time. No, that doesn't work for me. So having someone who can take notes. Now the school takes notes and you can ask for a copy of those notes, but also, it's helpful for me to have somebody there who also takes notes too. So let's look at the IEP development stair steps, right? So the first place we're going to look at is special factors. So special factors, for those of you who are familiar with IEPs or have attended, know that it's says something like, does the behavior impede the child's learning or the learning of others, right? And then you have to mark yes, or you have to mark no. You may have seen a sheet already filled out with yes and no on there, okay? Either way, you need to make sure and go through each and every one, because here's the thing to remember. If it's checked yes, it has to be addressed in the IEP. If it's checked no, it will not be addressed in the IEP. And so a lot of times what I'll see mostly is around maybe assistive technology, that will be checked no. And then we're getting into goals and we're getting into like the service summary, and then families are saying, oh, wait, hold on, but we need, access to a Chromebook with extensions. Okay, well, we have to check that in special factors first. So again, we're threading the needle, right? It's a path that we're walking on. This, if it's checked yes, it must be addressed. If it's not checked, it won't be. And I would say the one that has the biggest like misconception or pushback is around behavior, because a lot of times people will say, oh, we don't want to check behavior because then a child might be labeled as behavior. Well, my teacher hat is going to tell you that if a child has behavior, everybody probably knows already. And I would hate for that not to be checked because of that, because then they won't have the supports that they need in the IEP in order to be successful. So keep that in mind. Now, I'm going to share with you something that we have noticed as an organization. A lot of districts moved over to some online like platforms for putting in goals and putting in IEPs. And guess what's not on there? Specialized formats. If you are working with a family and you're looking at an IEP, please look to see that specialized formats is included under special factors. We've already alerted ODE, they know about it. But frequently that has not been included on some of these online platforms that school districts are using to create their IEPs. So I'm with all of you alerting you to that, you can also look to make sure and say to your school, the school district, hey, I noticed specialized formats is not included under special factors. That's actually something that's wrong with the platform that's being used. And so just you guys, all of you can help us with that process of making sure schools get that on their forms. Okay, and so the next one is the present levels. Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. The present levels is really the part that I want you to support a family in being prepared, because this is the time when we talk about a student's strengths, we talk about their interests, we can provide a parent input. This is where we talk about observations and assessments and progress towards goals, and it's foundational to the IEP. This section is foundational and maybe more difficult to participate as a parent. And I'll tell you why. What happens is that everybody turns to the family and they say, what are your child's strengths? if you are a family who has bought into a deficit model, you all know what I'm talking about. A family may struggle to identify their child's strengths. This is where I think you can be crucial to that, because you can help support a family in identifying their child's strengths. That's already conversations that you've probably been having with your families. And so how can we take that information and support them in understanding and including that on the IEP? So the first time that they asked me my child's strengths, or I don't even remember which year it was, I think I just said transportation, which was actually the SPED director for my district that had heard me say this said, oh, transportation, like he knows how to like ride the bus. And I was like, well, he was a first grader, so I'm pretty sure he wasn't independently navigating transportation. He just liked transportation. But there's so much, he has so many strengths, and I wasn't able to share that and capture that with the team. This is the time when the family's input is like all eyes are on the family. So how can they be prepared ahead of time? I'm going to show you some tools that can be used in order to support a family in this process. So the next thing they ask the family is, what are your concerns? And I probably rambled off for like, 20 to 30 minutes. And then the capture was like, Mom is concerned that he's not making friends on the playground. Well, that really didn't accurately capture my concerns, but that's what was written in there. So one of the things that I can recommend, so when they say, what are your child's strengths? This is the place for a one-page profile, okay? And you may be familiar with this. The tool icon in the corner means that this is included in our toolkit, right? And so what is included in a one-page profile? It includes pictures, it's positive language, and it's customized tools. So how very different might it look instead of me saying, oh, transportation, if I actually had the one-page profile that talked about my child, talked about can follow a schedule, self-regulates with visual prompts, long gaps in learning are difficult, visual schedules are important. It's very different, right? It paints a very different picture and changes the whole entire meeting. I firmly believe that the success of an IEP meeting is the preparation prior to the meeting. And so creating the one-page profile, and here's an example for an older student, for Evelyn. We have templates online. We actually have a one-page profile training coming up September 30th. But this is a really powerful piece to be able to support a family in sharing out what they know of their child's strengths and what works and what doesn't. And I've never had a school team that said, oh, no, thanks, we're not interested in that. What I have seen school teams do is this, put it into the folder. So how can you coach a family to understand that you are a meaningful, that your meaningful parent participation and your role on the team is vital, and to own the space of going through it. You've created it, your child has created it, and it deserves some footprint. So spend time going over it with the team. And then the next part is when they ask about concerns. And instead of rambling on like Charlie Brown's teacher, like I probably did prior to a one-page or a parent input statement, you can use a parent input to share strengths, concerns, and remedies. And let me show you what one looks like. So we look forward to working with the team. This is also a tool that's included in the toolkit. We look forward to working with a team to create a rigorous IEP. For Amir, this goes with this is a sample from the other one. What are his strengths? What are his concerns? What are his remedies, right? What are the remedies? So you're coming to the team with actual suggestions. So strengths, great memory and loves to learn. What's a concern? Going from half-day preschool to full-day preschool or kindergarten, sorry, or not having gone to preschool and transitioning into a full-day kindergarten, right? And then what will we like? Let's use a visual schedule to take supported breaks throughout the day. We know that that works really well. So this is a really important tool. Again, your best bet is to front load as much support or as much preparation prior to the meeting. It completely changes what your meeting looks like. And so the next piece that we're going to look at is transition. You know what I would love? If you could use your thumbs up button. How many of you have used a parent input or a one-page profile? If in your reactions, you could just do a thumbs up. Okay.
I might just go to Walmart, Mom. It looks like they have them.
So I think if you want to make sure you're muted. Okay, good. Well, what I love is that what I can imagine is that all of you who put a thumbs up can probably attest to the fact that they are powerful tools for families to meaningfully participate in and be engaged in the process. And I've never had a school team say, like, no, thank you, please don't introduce that to families. In fact, I've had lots of school teams who've adopted it and have supported their families in creating them for themselves. Okay, so it looks like somebody has used them, but not in the context of an IEP. Yeah, really powerful tool that can be used for beyond IEPs as well. So the next one is transition. And we really want that conversation to happen as soon as possible, so that remembering the purpose of IDEA is for further education, employment, and independent living. So as we're starting to talk about transition planning, I even tell families, talk about it early on. What are some pre-employment skills? What about choice very early on, right? What about how we're moving towards self-determination? And so officially by the age of 16, but it's never too early to start having those conversations. And during that transition planning, we'll talk about creating goals for life after school. Graduating with a modified or extended diploma creates access to those transition services until 21. We actually will have online trainings. We have a mid-high one that really dives in deep, that's online, on demand on our website. So if you want to dive in deeper into understanding transition for middle school and high school students, that's online on our website. And if you want some further information around transition. I'm just giving you sort of an overview, and then you can take a deeper dive at another point. So for example, maybe we identified, under the present levels that, one of our areas of concern, had to do with organization, or maybe it had to do with utilizing some sort of assistive technology that helps with schedules or things like that. Those are things then we can bring in that would also support as we're prior to transition, and then also to transition as we're looking at some of those goals for life beyond school. And so then the next section, and you know what, and actually I want to say one more thing about present levels that I missed. I'm sorry, in the process. When we're talking about present levels too, so the family being able to use that one-page profile and that parent input statement, right, in order to start it out as having a really robust conversation around what your child might need. But then that next section is where we identify areas of concerns. This is a lot of time the place that maybe families that can feel very overwhelming for families, because it is the place we start looking at those evaluations and assessments. And so, but if we have used the one-page profile and parent input, we might be able to say, like, let's say the area of concern is in math. And we've identified that a child will need some goals and supports in math. We can also say, oh, but remember on that one-page profile where you identified that they know how to use a calculator really well? How could we then think about how that math goal might include whatever support they need that we've identified? And so it is a really difficult section. It's a wonderful section because it really allows a family to have footprint in sharing what they know best about their child. And it also can be really difficult to sit through and listen all of the things that a child is not able to do or that are areas of concern. So that's why that section is one where I ask for the information ahead of time and have an opportunity to listen to it and process it prior to that meeting. and while we're talking. So the things we've identified that can be helpful can be used for assessments. I'm not talking about assessments for evaluation for special education. I'm talking about state and district standardized assessments, right? They happen every few years. So asking for what accommodations that you already have figured out. So for example, calculator, right? We identified that a calculator was really helpful. So will a child be able to use a calculator? Is that an allowable accommodation on the state and district standards, right? What accommodations could they use? And then students that are, and then deciding, are they taking the standardized assessments? Are they taking an extended assessment? And students taking extended assessments, we're going to have short-term objectives within their IEP goals. So that's a requirement. Many students or many districts will choose to have short-term objectives within their IEP goals anyway, regardless of whether they're taking the extended assessment, but not all. But know that if the child is taking an extended assessment, you will see those short-term objectives within their IEP goals. So next we're going to look at goals. So what I decided to do is to show you an example of a goal for this. So what we are looking for when we're looking at SMART goals is that we're looking at specific, that they're measurable, you know, that they're relevant, that they're like over a certain period of time. So what we don't want to see, and I see less of this now that we see districts that are using like data banks for goals, I actually see less generic goals than I used to see. So that's what I kind of want to specifically address around goals. But so for example, if we had identified under special factors that there might be a need for support around behavior, then we identified under present levels that that was an area of concern. Then we may have a goal that is specific to behavior. So for example, for this one, we've identified that math was an area of concern for Ava, that reading was an area of concern for Sam. And so now we have a goal for that. So I used to see goals like that. I really did see a goal one time that said, so-and-so will have good behavior. And that was, I was like, well, what does that mean, right? What's good behavior? You know, and so that is not a SMART goal. So this is generic goal. Ava will improve her math skills. What we want to see is things like, given a calculator, Ava will correctly type in the problem and share answer, verbal typing and stamping with 90% accuracy on addition equations equaling no more than 10 in 8 out of 10 opportunities. That's a SMART goal, right? And so we want to be looking for goals that are SMART goals. What we don't want to see is generic goals. Here's where I see more of an issue. Because we now have data banks, many districts have data banks of goals. If you hear, oh, I'm sorry, we can't do that goal because it's not in our data bank, that's the problem that I would push back on, because they have to be individualized. And so because they have to be individualized, saying that, oh, sorry, we don't have that in our data bank, does not make it individualized. And so recognizing that those SMART goals are really important. And I saw a few comments in here, but I think it's, let's see. Language is key instead of me going over what they can't do. Yep. Yeah. 100%. Thank you. And I do think language is really important. And even when we're looking at, you know, SMART goals, I have one of the trainings I do is actually dissecting a SMART goal, because what I love here is that we've identified what is the support needed for Ava to access this, you know, addition equation. So given a calculator or using word prediction software, right? We've identified what is that support or service that's going to allow the child to access their education. And then how are we going to ensure, how are we going to make sure that progress is being made? So progress is a really important part to keep in mind. So all families should receive progress goals, right? what progress has a child been making towards their goals. That's how we determine whether the goals are working or not, right? Whether they're the correct ones or not. And so that progress towards goals is really important, because what may happen is that if a progress is not being made, we want to be proactive to say, okay, well, hold on, then what's happening that's not working? Is this not the right goal? Are we not providing the right supports in order to access this goal? Are we not implementing the IEP with fidelity? So are we not actually doing and supporting what actually is in the IEP? So it's really important to be proactive as we're looking at goals. And if we see that their goals are not being met, or if goals are kind of ridiculous, like we had, we call them either bubblegum or cul-de-sac goals, a goal that is not right. It doesn't matter how many times. So my son has pretty significant dysgraphia. And so in the early days, we had goals specifically around handwriting. Well, we could still right now at the age of 16 be working on writing the perfect whatever, right? That would be a goal that would not ever come off. Cul-de-sac or bubblegum, keep chewing on it, right? At some point we had to say, is this really what we need in order for life beyond school? Or can we utilize speech to text? Can we utilize extensions on word processing? Can we use, what are some of the things we can use that would support moving beyond that? Because that was a goal that we were not ever going to get out of. We were just going to keep going around and round. So it's really important to look at that piece and also look at progress towards goals and how those are being made. And then we have the service summary. And there used to be a slide from back in the day with FACT that actually had a big slab of meat and potatoes. And it's like the meat and potatoes. This is where the stuff, right? This is where all of the things that are included in order to figure out how to support a child. So this is where we have specially designed instruction. So we've identified math, right? And so now we're going to say, okay, what does the specially designed instruction look like for math? This is where we have related services. We might have our occupational therapist or our nurse or riding the school bus, things like that included under. Then we would have the supplementary aids and services, and that's where we would include the Chrome, the word processor or the visual schedule or the calculator or the headphones, like the stuff, right? What they might need in order to access their education and be successful. I think what's really important during this section is to be a savvy consumer. This is where you ask the questions. So if we've identified that there's going to be specially designed instruction in math, then I want to know, where's that going to happen? Are they going to be pulling them out of class? Are they going to be pushing in supports into class? Where is that going to happen? How much time is that going to happen, right? And what's my child going to be missing if they are pulled out during that time? Who is going to be doing it, right? Where is it going to happen? Like all of those questions is where we want families to be savvy consumers, because that's where we start seeing time, right? 30 minutes, 2 times a week. We start seeing, 80 minutes, whatever, right? We start seeing those times associated with these things, related services, OT. I didn't understand it in the early days, and OT was wonderful. We had a great OT, but I was like, give me more, give me more, give me more. I also wanted my son included in general education. But I was like, 20 minutes, give me 40, give me 50. And what I didn't realize is we got to placement and I was like, wait, why is he being pulled out? Well, I wasn't a savvy consumer. I didn't ask the questions. I didn't say, when is this happening? Where is this happening? Who's doing it? What will he be missing during that time? And so this is a really important section to ask all of those questions, because this is where the meat and potatoes of the supports and services that will allow a child to access their education. And the next section is most underutilized, and that's support for school personnel. And so that is that's where I advocate for the teacher receiving what supports they might need. if my son is using assistive technology, then do we have an assistive technology team that maybe is supporting the teacher and knowing how to support my son in using it? Do we have an autism consultant who can work with the teacher so that they might have some additional tools in their tool belt around how to support my child? You know, there are a variety of things, but it's not support directly to the child. It's support, could be training to the school personnel. And so that's a really underutilized section, in my opinion, of the IEP. The next section under this is the non-participation justification. And this is where we then add up all the time. So remember I said like 20 minutes 2 times a week or whatever. We take all that time, calculators, and we start adding it up, and we figure out how much a child is going to be pulled out of the general education classroom. And then we have to make a justification for why that's the case. And so this is a really important section, because remember when I talked about least restrictive environment, to the maximum extent, we want kids to be educated with children who do not experience disability. And so how are we looking at what that looks like? There is a non-participation justification where they have to make justification for those pullouts. But frequently families don't understand and ask those W questions, those what, where, why questions, right? And so then they're surprised when the numbers add up to a large amount, you know, happening somewhere else. And so recognizing that that's a really important part to be a part of. And then we have extended school year, and that's not summer school. So that's not summer school. Hold on. Excuse me. So extended school year would be based on something called regression and recoupment. Families would want to have a conversation with their school team very early on so that they can track data. It may or may not be at the school where your child already attends, and it may or may not be with the teacher. This is very different than summer enrichment that happened this summer. Okay, extended school year is something different. One moment. Sorry about that. That's when I know I'm talking too much. And then the very last, now we've created all of this together, the IEP. And the last piece that we're going to look at now is we're going to look at placement. So the steps are complete. The IEP is developed. A totally separate page now, we're going to move to placement. And this is we already kind of get a sense of placement during the service summary, right? Because we know that they may be pulled out at certain times, or a lot of the time, or very little. So we already have a little sense of placement prior to, based on the non-participation justification. That's a tongue twister for me today. And so now we're going to look at placement. The placement team includes the parents as part of that process. We're going to look at all the different placement options. We always first look at the neighborhood school, and the general education classroom is the first placement option. And then what we need to determine for each one is, what is the benefit? Is there a possible harmful effect? And then are there modifications or supplementary aids that can be used in order to support that placement option? Then we have to go through and decide, are we rejecting or are we accepting which one of those placement options? It's really important to remember that it's not disability specific. So what I shouldn't hear is, all kids with Down syndrome are in room 18 and this is your placement, right? Or all kids with, you know, behaviors are in Mr. So-and-so's class, right? It should not be predetermined. And so that's a really important piece to keep in mind. Does it happen? Yeah. And it shouldn't, right? That's not the way that this looks. Placement is at the very end. And so that's really a lot of information, and not a deep dive into all, like there's more that I could share with you, but that's the overview of the IEP. And I hope you can see how those stepping stones each build on each other. And what there might be a takeaway for you of like, ooh, I need to know a little bit more about this, or I need a deeper dive. We do have on-demand trainings that you can watch that take a deeper dive into all of these sections. But what I want to talk about next is how can you and I work together in order to support families? What does that look like? Because if anything, I'm sure that you're thinking, wow, this is really complicated. That's a lot to remember. That's a lot for families to have to, like, burden of for them to be able to participate in. And so let's talk about how we can work together to help each other. So one of the things that I want to just share is what our support process looks like. So for families or for partners, you can call FACT or you can email us. Either way, you can do support at FACT Oregon, or you can do info, either one of those, and it comes directly to us. I'll put my email in there too. A FACT Oregon staff member will ask like the general, do an initial intake, and then a call will come 24 to 48 hours by a support specialist specifically assigned to work with whoever the person is, the resource specialist. That is like the intake process, and then working with you. And so for most families, or not most, but many families who will cold call us, and it's, they may call and say, oh, great, thank you. Now I have the next steps. On average, we work with a family average of about 6 times from that initial intake, around 6-time contact of like, let's follow up, and how are we doing, and what's the next steps, and things like that. That's about the average. Obviously, sometimes more, sometimes less. But what I want to share with you is that if you serve a family that faces barriers to access, like they need language support, they experience disability themselves, or they may need like an introductory meeting, and they might need someone to come alongside and need additional support, then you can refer them to FACT Oregon. And what I'll do is I'll put in the chat, we actually have a referral form that you can submit. The only thing I would say is, please do not submit a family unless you have talked with them and they know, right? Please don't do that because there's nothing worse than some random person calling and they're like, what? And then it's, it cannot be good. So it has to be at the request of parents and caregivers. And you can decide after talking with the family, maybe they're like, I'm good, just connect me up with FACT Oregon. Or maybe they're like, you know what, I could use some additional support. Can we work together? And you want to be part of that process, you can let us know that. We have the special education toolkit, which will be sent to you. We have templates for one-page profiles and parent input. I've already mentioned we have a bunch of on-demand training modules that are totally free. You can go on and watch it at your leisure. That we have one on behavior in the IEP. We have IEP mid-high. We're going to have assistive technology up there relatively soon. We have early intervention, transition to kindergarten. So we have quite a few different ones on there that you can go look at. And so what I want to do is I'm going to back up. We had a Jamboard, but I talked too long, but I want you to think about what we talked about earlier, which is, what did you connect with in this that you're like, yes, I already know that. Oh, thank you for the reminder. What for you was a new understanding that you're like, ooh, this is a takeaway. Like, I am going to take this away because it's new information that I can use to help a family. And then what lingering questions do you still have? Maybe it's like, well, you know what, I'm not sure about this, but this is very specific. I'm going to reach out to Heather and find out more information on what this looks like. And so I just want you to think about what those takeaways might be. It's easy to get overwhelmed by all of it. And so I always like to tell families, what's your one next step, right? What's your one thing that is your takeaway that you're like, I'm going to do this. And so whatever that is, maybe it's like supporting a family and creating a parent input. I just put my email in the chat, so please feel free. We will send out the slides. Yep. And the recorded session. And I just want to thank you so much for joining me today. It's a lot of information, but no, please feel free to follow up with me if you need anything else. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather. So the survey, slides, and handout will come to you all today via email, and then the recording of this session with the captions will be posted at the conclusion of the summer learning series. So look for that in October on the ODDS website. There will be a dedicated page with all of the sessions from this learning series posted there. And if you come back this afternoon at 1 o'clock, we'll have Jessica Stout and Nat Jacobs here to talk to us about children's behavioral health. I'm not seeing questions in the chat. Do folks want 3 minutes back in their day as a gift of time? Use a thumbs up, if so. And you know how to get a hold of Heather with questions. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Heather.